Geographers like to measure how developed a country is so that they can compare countries and understand their differences. Development is all about how much progress a country has made in improving the lives of its people. It's not just about money, though that's part of it. It also includes health, education, and access to resources. What are LEDCs and MEDCs? One basic way to compare countries is by dividing them into two groups. LEDCs, less economically developed countries. These countries are generally poorer with lower living standards. They often have more people working in farming and fewer people living in cities. Examples include countries like Ethiopia or Nepal. MEDCs, more economically developed countries. These are wealthier countries with higher living standards, better healthcare, and more people living in cities. Examples include the UK, USA, and Japan. While the LEDC and MEDC system helps us understand broad differences, measuring a country's development is actually a lot more complicated because it depends on many different factors. These factors are called development indicators. Development indicators are different measures used to show how developed a country is. Some of these indicators include Gross Domestic Product, GDP. This is the total value of everything a country produces in a year. Countries with higher GDPs are usually wealthier. GNI per capita. This measures the average income of people in a country. It helps compare how much money people in different countries earn. Life expectancy. This is the average number of years a person can expect to live. In more developed countries, life expectancy is higher because of better healthcare, nutrition, and living conditions. Infant mortality rate. This measures how many babies die before their first birthday per 1,000 live births. Lower rates indicate better healthcare and living conditions. Calorie intake. This shows how many calories people eat on average. More developed countries tend to have higher calorie intake because people can afford enough food. Energy consumption. This shows how much energy, like electricity, people use. Countries with more development tend to use more energy because of factories, homes, and businesses that need electricity. Urban population. This tells us what percentage of a country's people live in cities. More developed countries often have higher urban populations because people tend to move to cities for better job opportunities. Literacy rate. This shows what percentage of people can read and write. A high literacy rate means most people in the country are educated, which is a sign of development. Number of people per doctor. This measures how many people each doctor is responsible for. In more developed countries, there are usually more doctors available to care for the population. Many of these indicators are linked, and they can tell us a lot about a country. For example, countries with a high GDP often have larger urban populations, consume more energy, and have better healthcare. Countries with a low infant mortality rate tend to have higher life expectancy and better healthcare systems. When several indicators are combined, they give a clearer picture of how developed a country is. Let's compare two countries using these development indicators: the UK, an MEDC, and Ethiopia, an LEDC. The UK has a high GDP and GNI per capita, meaning that people are generally wealthier. It also has high life expectancy, around 81 years, low infant mortality rates, high literacy rates, and most of its population lives in cities. There are also more doctors available for the population. Ethiopia, on the other hand, has a much lower GDP and GNI per capita. Life expectancy is lower, around 67 years. Infant mortality rates are higher. And fewer people live in cities. The literacy rate is lower, meaning that fewer people have access to good education. Using these indicators is helpful, but there are a couple of problems with them. Some countries may seem developed according to some indicators, but not others. For example, a country might have a high literacy rate but still have a low GDP or poor healthcare. Development data isn't always up to date. It can take time to gather information, and by the time it's published, things might have already changed in the country. Measuring development is complex because there are so many factors involved. Development indicators like GDP, life expectancy, and literacy rates help geographers compare countries. but we need to look at the full picture to understand how developed a country really is.